I'm Mr. MegaManFan, and this is Genesis Does. I've avoided talking about Sonic the Hedgehog 3 until now because, frankly, it seems so obvious to discuss it that it probably didn't even need to be discussed, but after a couple of weeks where I was less than enthralled by the games I was playing on Genesis Does, I decided it was time for a refresh and to go back to one of my all-time favorite Sega Genesis games. Now, this game is both famous and infamous for a wide variety of reasons, but let's talk about why it's famous. It is one of the most popular of all Sega Genesis games. It is also well known for being half of a game. They were so ambitious when they made this game that it was too big to fit on one cartridge, so the entirety of the game is actually Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and unless you have the Sonic and Knuckles lock-on cartridge, you're not really playing the full game, you're just playing the half of Sonic 3 that could fit on a cartridge. Sonic 3 can be played alone, Sonic and Knuckles can be played alone, but Sonic 3 and Knuckles is the full intended experience. The lock-on cartridge also enables you to unlock Knuckles in Sonic 2, and it really doesn't do much with Sonic 1, except unlock this Blue Spheres game, where you can play a wide variety of variants generated procedurally based on data. And incidentally, when I say procedurally generated, that means that it also works with any Sega Genesis game, not just Sonic 1. You can access the Blue Sphere game with any game other than Sonic 2 or Sonic 3 locked on to Sonic and Knuckles. On a list of all-time best-selling games for Sega Genesis, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 ranks 4th with 4 million copies sold. In the US, 1.24 million copies of Sonic & Knuckles, and 1.02 million copies of Sonic 3. So believe it or not, Sonic & Knuckles actually outsold it, in the US at least, by just a little bit. Now, I did say the game was both famous and infamous, and here's why it's infamous: Michael Jackson. According to developer Roger Hector of the Sega Technical Institute, Michael Jackson was actually hired to compose music for the game, as Jackson himself was an admitted fan of Sonic the Hedgehog games and had previously worked with Sega on the Moonwalker video game, which was subsequently ported to Sega Master System and Sega Genesis. So there was already a relationship there between the two sides, and Michael Jackson making music for a Sonic the Hedgehog game certainly wouldn't have been out of the question if he was already a fan of the Genesis and of Sonic the Hedgehog. But this became complicated because around the time he was working on it, he got his first major wave of publicity for alleged child abuse, the details of which I am not going to go into to keep this video family friendly, but let's just say that Sega was obviously not thrilled with this, and they were not going to keep him on the Sonic the 3 game in any official capacity for fear of the negative publicity the game would take and how it would affect sales. So here's what supposedly happened, the details of which are still widely debated in a lot of circles. Two members of Michael Jackson's production team, Doug Grisby III and Shirako Jones, say that the music was left in the game but went uncredited because Michael Jackson himself was unhappy with how his music sounded on a Sega Genesis. Like I say, that's debatable, disputed whether he distanced himself from the Genesis or Sega distanced themselves from him. This issue only gets further complicated when people started making comparisons between Michael Jackson songs, composers that worked with Michael Jackson, and songs in the actual Sonic 3 game. For example, the end credits in Sonic the Hedgehog 3 sound an awful lot like Michael Jackson's 1996 single Stranger in Moscow. And Brad Buxer, a producer who worked with Michael Jackson in 1993, had a band called The Jetsons, spelled with a Z, that had an unreleased single in 1982 called Hard Times. And if you listen to Hard Times and you listen to the Ice Cap Zone from Sonic 3, they sound an awful lot alike. And furthermore, to add another layer of intrigue to this whole thing, since Michael Jackson's death in 2009, Sonic 3 has disappeared from a lot of collections of Sonic the Hedgehog. Before that time, you could find Sonic 3 on Sonic compilations. After that time, not so much. And many people believe this is due to legal issues with Michael Jackson's estate. Now, Sega senior producer Mike Latham, marketing director Al Nielsen, marketing director Pam Kelly, and former American President Tom Kalinske have all said that if Michael Jackson did do any music for Sonic 3, the arrangements were made without their knowledge and that no formal agreements were ever signed. And Roger Hector said that any similarities to Michael Jackson's music and the music from Sonic 3 was completely unintentional. Nevertheless, one of the Sega sound staff composers, Jun Senoue, said that he knew about Michael Jackson's involvement in Sonic the Hedgehog 3, but was not allowed to discuss it. And to add one more wrinkle to this whole thing, some of the songs seem to have been replaced in the 1997 port of Sonic 3 for Windows PCs called the Sonic & Knuckles Collection, but those same tracks wound up in a Sonic 3 prototype that was discovered in 2019, which suggests they were originally written for the Sega Genesis game before being replaced by Michael Jackson's music instead of the other way around. So, if you like delving into video game mysteries, Sonic 3 is full of them, and not just the secret areas where you get the golden rings to access the blue sphere, the actual development of the game itself. It also came out ahead of its Japanese release, which was very unusual for a Genesis / Mega Drive game. It came out in North America on February 2nd, 1994, and in Europe on February 24th, but it didn't come out in Japan until May 27th. Sonic games were, I want to say, not the only exception to the rule that Japan gets it first, but yeah, most of the time Japan got Sega Genesis games first for the Mega Drive, and then they were ported here. So obviously they were catering to the US market to a great degree with Sonic the Hedgehog because they knew he was the mascot character of the Genesis in North America. And to this day, Sonic still has that iconic status that when you think of Sega, you probably think of Sonic the Hedgehog first and foremost before you would think of any other character. Vector Man? No, I don't think so. Flicky? It's tied into Sonic, but no. Toe Jam and Earl? I love them. Not really mascots of the system. No, there's nobody else other than Sonic to represent the brand Sega as their flagship character. And as far as the game itself, aside from all these other issues, it is a great platformer. In fact, it's so great that while I was playing, my cat Tango sat on my legs and sat on the controller cord. So for about a minute there, I can't actually even play the game because I couldn't move, I couldn't do anything until I could free the controller from his paws. He likes listening to it just as much as I do. The music in this game is great, regardless of who composed it. And the platforming is a lot of fun, albeit a little more challenging than Sonic 2 because there's a lot of springbacks where if you're running forward, you can get knocked back if you don't slow down. So it's not as fast-paced as Sonic 2 in some ways, but it's also more challenging in other ways in that it requires you to understand the level layout and proceed accordingly to make progress. You learn through repetition, and when you haven't played it for a while, you can be a little out of practice. You also get new power-ups in this one. You get a fire shield that will let you soar through the air and fly through enemies, and if they try to hit you with fire, you absorb it so it doesn't do any damage. And you also get an electric power-up, which makes rings pull toward you like a magnet, and also lets you zap through the air. But you lose the fire or the electricity shields if you hit a water area. That nullifies them. However, there is a power-up just for the water. You can get an air bubble shield, and that one is really useful because then you don't get the timer that constantly reminds you, hey, Sonic is running out of oxygen, you need to find a pocket of air to breathe. You don't get the and then Sonic floats up like a dead corpse. When you have the air bubble, he's okay. He can stay in the water for as long as he wants. But of course, the bubble can be popped by enemies, so you have to be careful with it. It's not an unlimited shield that has no consequences. If you're not careful, you can lose it, and then you'll still have to find those air pockets. Sonic 3 is a very deep game, has excellent music, great platforming. It's a lot of fun to play, but I am sadly out of practice with it, so this play session is probably not super impressive. I'm definitely not speedrunning the game playing it this way, and maybe it's just my imagination, but it feels like in emulation, it runs slightly slower than it does when I play it on authentic hardware. Even when I play it on the analog Mega SG, which is FPGA, so it's recreating the internal components of a Sega Genesis, it feels more accurate. And if I play it with an 8-bit DO controller on the analog Mega SG, I don't notice any lag. I realize a wireless controller could introduce lag, but I don't notice it. And yet, when I play it to record the footage for this video, I feel like there's a slight bit of lag. It feels like the sound and my inputs on my Sega Genesis 6-button USB controller are just a split second behind. Lag is not something I usually notice or complain about. I don't even want to call it a complaint per se, because it's still playable and I'm obviously still playing it. It just feels ever so slightly off. And it's definitely not the ROM, because this is the same one that I use when I don't have the Sonic 3 cartridge plugged into my analog Mega SG. Sometimes I just run it off the SD card when I don't feel like getting the cartridge out. And this is the same one that I'm using in emulation, so I do not blame the ROM for this in any way. It is the world version, which means it works in all regions. But maybe, I'm not ruling it out. It feels ever so slightly off. But obviously, I can still win the boss fight, so it's not hampering my play that much. It just seems to suck the most when I'm trying to do the blue sphere, because you have to have really accurate timing to navigate the mazes and not run into the red balls and only collect the blue, and it just didn't seem to be working for me that well. Anyway, that's Sonic 3 for Sega Genesis. A famous game and an infamous game. I'm Mr. MegaManFan, and as always, thank you for watching Genesis Does. Like the video, subscribe if you're not a subscriber, share it with a friend, and leave a comment, because all of those things help the channel out. I'll see you next week.